G'day, I'm Matt. This is the Mazda CX-60 and it could be the right car for you if you're looking for a luxurious SUV but from a mainstream brand rather than from a luxury brand. Because this has luxury brand pricing, but a Mazda badge. So, does it live up to its price? And is it a good car? Stay tuned and you'll find out. The CX-60 is available in 3 different trim grades with 3 different powertrains per trim. So that means there's 9 different available options in Australia for the Mazda CX-60, and pricing starts just under $60,000 for the entry-level Evolve version. Now that's for the petrol Evolve. It's a few grand more for the diesel and quite a bit more if you want the plug-in hybrid version. Now it comes as standard with some pretty nice stuff. You get LED front lighting, 18-inch alloy wheels, a 10.25-inch screen inside with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Now there's also a bunch of really nice features on the inside, climate control, that sort of stuff. But it comes with manual seats and fake leather trim at $60-ish thousand. That seems a bit rude to me. And then if you step up to this grade here, which is the GT, you get a few extras on the outside that you'll notice. 20-inch wheels, you get LED rear lighting as well, you get leather trim on the inside, you also get electric front seat adjustment, electric steering wheel adjustment, heated front seats as well, and it does feel like you're getting something that is a bit more worthy of the price tag that this car has, and then a few grand more for the diesel, and much more expensive for the plug-in hybrid, which is this one here. I'm going to tell you all about plug-in hybrid stuff soon. And at the top of the range is the Azami version. Now it is the one you buy if you want all the luxury elements that you can possibly get in a Mazda in Australia at this kind of money. This car, as the Azami spec, is very, very impressive in terms of what you're getting. And the plug-in hybrid version is going to be very close to 100 grand on the road. So it is a pretty expensive Mazda, but it does have a few interesting competitors that aren't really competitors. I'm going to tell you about them now. Naming alternatives to this car is pretty difficult because there's nothing else really quite like it. There's no other mainstream brand that's gone out and said, well, we're going to have straight sixes and a plug-in hybrid, and we're going to tackle the luxury segment, but with a Mazda badge. Anyway, it's definitely an interesting option in the market, and there are some really interesting alternatives if you ask me. The first one I would recommend would be the Lexus NX. Now that car is not just a RAV4 dressed up. Well, some parts of it are, but it's a really, really good luxury SUV. Feels more luxury and premium to me than this car does. And it also has the choice of hybrid and plug-in hybrid and regular turbo petrol engines as well. So it could be the right car for you. Another option you might want to check out is the Genesis GV70, a gorgeous looking SUV with the choice of some pretty decent turbocharged engines, but it's also got a fully electric version. Obviously, it's quite expensive. The top spec version is over 120,000 bucks, but it does have an EV option, which this car doesn't have. Another alternative you might want to have a look at, but maybe haven't thought of if you're looking at this kind of car, is the BMW X1. That car has the choice of a 3-cylinder turbo or a 4-cylinder petrol turbo. Now, I reckon the 4-cylinder is the pick, but it's also got a fully electric version sitting at the top of the range, which this car doesn't have, and it's about the same price as the top spec version of this for the full electric one. So it could be a really good option for you if you're willing to think outside of the box. The CX-60 is actually pretty big. For a mid-size SUV, it's as big as some 3-row or 7-seat SUVs in this sort of segment. It's just over 4.7 meters long, so it's not little, people. It's got a pretty long wheelbase, as you'll see there, and it's also got a bunch of different available colors. So this one is rhodium white, which does cost extra, but there are 3 versions that cost extra and a few that don't cost any extra at all. And I like that, but Mazda is starting to creep into the, well, all the premium ones should have premium pricing. Anyway, I'll show you the back row in a sec, but first, let's check out this boot and see if it's big enough. Let's talk about boot space. This is a pretty large car. Doesn't have the biggest boot though. 477 litres of cargo capacity is what you get in all grades of the CX-60, which is interesting because the plug-in hybrid version doesn't get a spare wheel, It just gets a repair kit. The other versions do get a space saver spare wheel. So there's not too much really to show you here. That's your charger bag in there. There's a little bit of storage underneath the floor there if you need it, and some netted sections, one netted section on the side here. If you buy the plug-in hybrid version, you also get a power point in the boot, which is nice to see. And Mazda has these really clever little levers, I guess you'd call them. They're like door handles, so you can just easily remotely fold those seats forward for you. They're not electric, and I actually like that. So does it feel like the money that Mazda is asking on the inside? To a degree it does, but it also doesn't feel like a huge leap forward for the brand in my opinion, because, well, some of these elements, yeah, they're nice, but they're not necessarily at the same standard as some of the other high-end brands when it comes to, I guess, the materials. Namely, there's some elements to the materials that I really am not a huge fan of. This sort of plasticky stuff down here on the glove box and on the dashboard just pulls down the ambience just a little bit. And I mean, look, you might not think that that's an issue, and it probably isn't for most people, but I'm just thinking of the money that you're potentially spending on this car and whether it feels like it should, right? Now, there's some other elements in here that I do like when it comes to the materials. There's this, I guess it's a fake leather finish on the dashboard here, but it kind of reminds me of like old Volvo leather, and I like that. And it's also got pretty nice material on the seats too, with nice stitching, including like I guess it's like a light tan or light brown sort of finish on the stitching. That doesn't gel so well though with this material here, which is kind of like a diamond shaped etched sort of look. It's just a very nice feeling material, but it doesn't really all combine as well as I thought it might when I first got into this car. So, but hey, everybody has their own tastes. You might love it, and that's totally cool if you do. Now, when it comes to the controls, my biggest issue with this car, and most Mazdas in fact, is that you don't have touchscreen Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You do have those, but you don't have the ease of use of using the touchscreen. But it does work while the car is sitting still. Instead, you've got to use this rotary dial. At least there are the home keys, I guess the fast button keys for you to jump between things when you are using CarPlay. And there's a volume dial down here as well, which I like. Now, one thing that I'm a big fan of in this car is that there are so many buttons. I love buttons. I'm a big fan. I think that buttons make it a lot easier to live with a car. So you've got fan control buttons. You've got your controls here for your temperature as well. Heated steering wheel, heated seats, that sort of stuff. So you do have a lot of the tactile, easy to touch elements when it comes to the buttons. And I like that. Storage is pretty good, not necessarily amazing, but pretty good. You've got a wireless phone charger up here, a couple of cup holders in under this covered section, a dual opening center console bin. It's quite shallow though, so there's not a whole lot of space in there to use. A couple of USB-C ports in there as well, and you've got bottle holders in the doors too. So it's not too bad, but I'm not really sure that it feels like the money that Mazda is asking, in my opinion. All right. How about the backseat experience? Rightio, if you're expecting a very, very roomy second row seat, you're going to be disappointed because this seat is set for me at 182 centimeters or 6 foot, and I am pretty cramped, to be honest. My knees are hard up against the seat in front of me. So are my shins, and my feet have got lots of room, but it's just not very comfortable. There's not enough room back here, I don't think, for something that is a mid-size SUV. There are small SUVs that have more leg room than this car, so yeah, that might play into your considerations. But if you are looking at this and you've got kids, you'll be happy to know that there are ISOFIX points in the window seats, 3 top tether points as well. You've also got mat pockets on the seat backs. You've got directional air vents down here. This spec also gets heated outboard rear seats, USB-C ports down there, and there's another power point down there as well, because this is the plug-in hybrid version. Now you've got bottle holders in the doors too. It also has flip-down armrest with cup holders. And you can also fold down this section if you need to load through skis or something like that. Just make sure that you secure them so they don't go sliding through to the front. The material quality and comfort is pretty good. Like, the seats are pretty cushy and they've actually got a fair bit of comfort to them, but hey, it's just not as much room as I was expecting. Three different powertrain options, as I mentioned. So the entry-level version is a 3.3 litre straight six petrol with mild hybrid technology, 48 volt mild hybrid. Now, the ads and the billboards that you'll see say that it's an all hybrid CX-60 range. It's mild hybrid, let's be realistic, but it does have a fair amount of power and torque for a 6-cylinder petrol engine. Now the diesel engine is also a straight six. Yeah, so this is what makes this car a little bit different. Straight six diesel, heaps of power and torque, and just like the petrol version, it's all-wheel drive and comes with an 8-speed automatic transmission. This one here, as you can probably see here, is the eSkyactiv PHEV, or PHEV, or PHEV, whatever you want to call it, plug-in hybrid. So it has a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, and it's also got an electric motor, as you would expect, teamed to a battery pack, and it has pretty decent combined power and torque outputs, as you'll see on your screen now. It isn't the most refined engine, but I'm going to tell you about that in the driving section. Let's talk about charging for this plug-in hybrid version. It's AC charging only, there's no DC fast charging. It's type 2, as you would expect. That's the modern standard, essentially. And so it has a 17.8 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's a lithium ion battery pack, and Mazda reckons that it's good for a pretty decent amount of EV driving range. You'll see that on screen now. And they also reckon that it should be able to recharge from a 7.2 kilowatt wall box in about 2.5 hours. Okay, so we're about to take off in the CX-60 plug-in hybrid. In park right now, let's go into drive. Hear that? It's kind of an interesting sound. It's very mechanical sounding, and you might not be expecting that. It's not very refined sounding either. And also, there's a bit of a lack of refinement at low speeds when, for example, you're reversing out of a driveway or you are trying to do a reverse parallel park, which I'll just do now for illustrative purposes. So, back into reverse. The shift is a bit weird too. Yeah. It's kind of hard to feather the throttle when it's in EV mode. And yep, there we go, we are in. So it does take a little bit of getting used to this EV driving mode in this plug-in hybrid version. I'll just get back out of this spot. Yeah, a bit clunky, a bit shuddery. It's just not as smooth as some EVs or plug-in hybrids tend to be. You'll also notice that it's not as smooth as it could be in terms of the gear shifts. Yep, you can feel shifts happening in this car, which is strange for an EV, well, for the EV mode of a car at least, and that's because the electric motor is integrated into the transmission, so it will actually shift up from first to second to third, and so on. So I'll just stop so we can experience it together. First. It's very short. Third. So the gears are very short, and obviously it feels like it's trying to do things as easily as it can. But yeah, it takes a bit of getting used to. It's not as smooth as you might expect that an EV mode will be. If you've driven any other EVs and you get into this and go, what's going on here? I can totally understand that. At lower speeds, you will notice that it does have even sometimes a bit of a shudder and a bit of a sort of feel to it, which is a bit strange. You know, this is an expensive car and it's nowhere near as refined as some of the other plug-in hybrid systems that I've driven in the past. So if you're expecting it to feel luxury, it doesn't. And yep, that was the engine kicking in to help me get away from a standstill. Look, I'm on low battery at the moment, so it is using the engine a little bit more. I mean, a Mitsubishi Outlander has a smoother and quieter transmission and transition between EV and petrol driving modes, or, you know, using both at the same time. So it is really surprising that this is the level that they were going, yep, tick, job done. Doesn't feel like it's job done to me. It's just a bit hard to drive smoothly. It sort of feels like it's constantly jerking back and forth, this engine, transmission, battery, electric motor combination. It just isn't as smooth as it could or should be. And that might not matter to you because you might be looking at the petrol or the diesel version of this car. I haven't driven either of them, so I can't really comment on what they're like. You might have read, if you've already done a bit of research on this car, the suspension is not fantastic. It's very, very firm, and in the plug-in hybrid versions, they've got more weight, so it can feel like it's pretty bouncy and bumpy and lumpy. And I've driven a lot of other luxury cars that have bad rides as well though, so it isn't necessarily on its own there. And for a lot of people, ride comfort might not be a big priority, but I think Mazda could have done better. This just isn't fantastic. I think the steering is a bit unpleasant. It's just really heavy on center, and so it can be a bit hard to judge what's going to happen next. And it is very direct though, so when you do go through some corners, you will find that it does have a pretty agile feel to it. But I've just found that when I've been going through corners, the bumpiness of the ride just takes away from it. It doesn't offer good handling, it just makes it less pleasant. There are also two different regenerative braking modes. I've got it set in the highest mode at the moment, and it won't come to a full stop, but it does gradually slow things down for you. Another thing that's not fantastic is the amount of road noise intrusion that comes into the cabin on a coarse chip road. This is really quite loud for the type of car that this is trying to be and the type of competitors that this car is aiming up against. But I know there are people out there who don't really care that much about the drive experience, and they'll be happy with the EV driving capabilities of this plug-in hybrid system. Now, let's talk about that in the efficiency section. For my test in this plug-in hybrid version of the CX-60, I did 100 kilometers and then I did another 100 kilometers. So for the first 100, I'd plugged in overnight, I made sure the car was fully charged, and I wanted to see how much range I could get from the EV battery pack situation. So the claim is 76 kilometers. Now that's based on the ADR testing, which is much more lenient than WLTP, which is usually the standard that most brands refer to. So 76 Ks, grain of salt, I would say. Look, I got more than 50, but not more than 60 Ks of EV driving range out of this full battery. And then I let it switch over to, well, choosing its own adventure. So it was either choosing battery or petrol, driving in a hybrid mode, you could say, just to round out that first 100 Ks. So you'll see on screen now the on-test fuel consumption figure and energy consumption figure for this drive when I did the first 100 Ks, and then I did the next 100 Ks. And that has seen a higher figure because it's been relying on the petrol engine quite a lot more. You'll see that on your screen now. Now that sort of goes to my argument that the idea of plug-in hybrid claimed efficiency numbers like this one's, which is 2.1 litres per 100 Ks, is a little bit misleading because you'll only ever achieve that for the first 100 if you've got a full battery. Then you're going to use a lot more fuel. But if you're going to use this car as it's intended, I mean, you're probably going to if you're going to spend this much extra to get the plug-in hybrid, then yes, you will achieve pretty close to the official claimed figure if you only ever do 100 Ks at a time and you make sure that your battery's fully charged up. What about the other models? You'll see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for the 6-cylinder petrol version of the CX-60 on your screen now. As you would expect, it's a little bit higher, still has mild hybrid technology to help it out, so it's lower than maybe a 6-cylinder petrol turbocharged engine has been in the past. I haven't driven it, so I can't attest to whether it will live up to that claim. And then there's the diesel one. The official combined cycle figure for it is lower, obviously. Diesels are typically a lot more fuel efficient, but you can see on screen now that it is a pretty decent number. It does have 48 volt mild hybrid as well, so it does have some electrification to help things out. The CX-60 has the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating based on 2022 criteria, and it does come as standard with a bunch of really good technology and equipment. So When it comes to safety, you've got autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian, cyclist and junction detection. There's also a lane keeping assist function. There's adaptive cruise control. There's blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, front and rear parking sensors, and a surround view camera as standard across all the grades, which is nice to see. Now you can get the surround view camera with a see-through function, so it basically makes the car look like it's transparent on the screen, but that will cost you extra if you want that on the entry-level version. And if you do tick that $2,000 option box, you also get front cross traffic alert, which works just like rear cross traffic, but it works at the front of the car. It's standard on the higher grades. Plus cruising and traffic control, which is basically like a semi-autonomous low-speed cruise control system for traffic jam. And a driver monitoring system that can allow you to set up your profile for the car. So it has a camera that keeps an eye on you and makes sure that it's you that's driving. And if it is you that's driving, it'll adjust things like the seat and the mirrors and that sort of stuff, which is pretty neat. It'll also keep an eye on you and make sure you're not getting too fatigued. That can be annoying though. When it comes to airbags, well, there's a bunch. There's 8, including dual front, front side, full length curtain, and a front center and driver's knee airbag. When it comes to warranty, you've got a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty for the CX-60 and all other Mazdas as well. If you choose the plug-in hybrid version, you get an 8-year warranty for the high voltage battery pack. When it comes to servicing, the intervals are 12 months and 15,000 Ks for the petrol and plug-in hybrid versions. If you choose the diesel though, it's 12 months and 10,000 kilometres. So if you do a lot of Ks, it means you're going to be spending more money to maintain your diesel car. Most other diesels have much longer intervals, so that's a bit confusing. But you'll see the prices for the petrol version, the plug-in hybrid version, and also the diesel version when it comes to the average annual service cost for the first 5 years. There's a cap price plan for 5 years and 75,000 or 5 years and 50,000 if you buy the diesel. There's roadside assist included as well for 5 years too. The Mazda CX-60 is definitely something that is, well, different to anything else on the market. I don't necessarily know that I love this car, and I'm not sure that you will either. There are a few elements to it that just aren't, well, as good as the price suggests it should be. Namely, the ride, and also the plug-in hybrid powertrain is a bit average, if I'm honest. Now, tell me what you reckon in the comment section below. Would you choose one of these cars? And if you would, which spec would you choose? Would you choose it with diesel, petrol, or plug-in hybrid? Or would you choose one of its best alternatives that I've already mentioned, or something else completely? Let me know in the comments section. If you haven't already, please do hit like and subscribe and the bell to keep up to date with all of my videos. See you soon.